Hey everyone, I'm Mariana and it is time for another monthly wrap up. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I watched in April, so let's get started with a few TV series. The first one I want to talk about, and the first one I actually finished, is Jessica Jones Season 2, which was okay. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit disappointed by season 2 of Jessica Jones. I really enjoyed season 1. I do have a review of that. If you haven't seen that, you can hear my thoughts there. But even though I didn't expect season 2 to be as good as season 1, because the villain of season 1 was just so great that I didn't think they could beat that, I still ended up being a little bit disappointed. First of all, I think this series is way too slow, season 2 in particular, and they probably had enough story for about 8 episodes, maybe 10, that would be pushing it, but 13 episodes was just an overkill. It was drawn out, the pacing was just not right. And that was pretty unfortunate because they eventually did get to some interesting stuff, but it was too late and it took too long and it didn't have the momentum that season 1 had. Even though season 1 was still pretty moderately paced, season 2 just didn't have it. Also, as I mentioned, the villain situation this time around just does not even compare to season 1, at least for me. I did not expect them to be able to top the Purple Man, but they didn't even come close. And that was pretty disappointing because we all know these superhero stories are as good as their villains. My third major issue with this season was Trish's storyline. I found her character so incredibly frustrating this season, and I was just not on board with anything that was going on with her. So that was probably my least favorite part of the whole thing. I did enjoy other storylines. There were a lot of subplots going on, but hers was just no, and it was kind of a major thing this season. They did eventually find their footing with season 2 in general, and they did get to some interesting themes and interesting stuff, but it just took way too long and there were a lot of problems along the way. So overall for me, I would say this was a 3 out of 5 kind of season, unfortunately. The second series I ended up watching, which is also a Netflix original series, was Mindhunter season 1. And guys, I loved it. I loved everything about this show. Thank you so much to everyone who recommended it to me and who told me I really need to check it out because it was just great. If you don't know, the series is set in the 70s and it shows the early days of criminal psychology and profiling at the FBI. For me, this is an interesting topic to begin with, and the way they go about it is they interview serial killers, which, as you can imagine, is pretty fascinating. And these conversations are actually based on interviews that happened with serial killers that are portrayed in the show in real life. On top of that, the whole thing is just generally really well made and well shot and well acted. 4 out of 10 episodes are directed by David Fincher, which I'm sure a lot of you knew already, but if you didn't know, that's a thing, which is amazing. But even the episodes that are not directed by David Fincher are not really subpar in any way. So everything about this was great. I binged it in a few days and I am so excited that they actually renewed this for season 2. I cannot wait for season 2. Supposedly David Fincher is also going to direct episodes in season 2. So yeah, the hype is real for me. I would probably give this season 4.5, if not 5 out of 5 stars. And then of course, Westworld is back on HBO and I am keeping up with that. We are 2 episodes into season 2. It's a little bit too early to tell how well this is going, at least for me. I will say that I am not 100% sold on this whole Rise of the Machines plot line that they have going on. I am hoping they dig deeper. I'm hoping they do more with it, but I'm withholding my judgment until the season is over, and I'm probably going to rewatch the entire season once it's done to form my final opinion, and we'll probably do a review of that as well. If you haven't seen my review of season 1, I do have a discussion video for that, but it is a spoiler discussion, so be aware of that. If you haven't seen season 1, you should definitely watch that before watching my video. And now getting into the movie section of this wrap up, let's take a look at my Letterboxd as we usually do. If you don't follow me on Letterboxd, I think you definitely should. I am Impression Blend on there just as I am on other social media. And April was a pretty interesting movie month for me. I'm not sure why, but I spent the almost entirety of April watching horror films and thrillers. I don't know why I was feeling that way in the middle of the spring, but that's how things went, so that's what you're about to see. The first thing I watched was actually a documentary, Beware the Slender Man. This is about the two girls who decided they need to kill for Slender Man, who is this internet, pretty much urban legend, not a real thing. And they lured their 12-year-old friend into the woods and pretty much tried to murder her, stabbing her repeatedly. Nice friends. This definitely felt padded to extend runtime. It's almost 2 hours of a documentary, but it didn't really feel necessary at all. It is still an interesting crime documentary, especially if you haven't been following this on the news. But if you have been, you're probably not going to find a lot of new stuff in there, though the interviews with the two girls are probably the best part of this whole thing. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it if you're interested in it, but it definitely could have been shorter and could have been done better. Then I watched Take Shelter. This is starring Michael Shannon as a husband and a father who starts having these apocalyptic visions of near future, and the entire thing is pretty much you trying to figure out as the viewer if he is actually seeing visions of the upcoming apocalypse or if he is just going crazy. And it is a really, really excellent film. I would definitely recommend it. I really wish I got to see this in theaters. I think this would have been a very interesting experience. Michael Shannon, of course, delivers as he always does. He is fantastic. You know those scenes. There are scenes in almost every movie where Michael Shannon is starring where he starts just losing his shit, and that's usually the best parts of Michael Shannon's acting. And of course, we have some of that in Take Shelter, and it is glorious. It's just amazing. Ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. If you have a chance to check it out and you haven't seen it yet, obviously check it out. You will not regret it. After that, I decided to rewatch The Descent, which is a really solid survival horror film about a group of women who go exploring a cave, and they may or may not get into a lot of trouble exploring this cave. If you haven't seen this movie, I'm sure you have heard of it, and a lot of people recommend this one for good reason. This is a film that is actually nerve-wracking, and it will make you feel claustrophobic. It will make you feel very stressed out. There are some really tense scenes in there, and it is a really, really good horror film. I will say the US ending is just, it's not great. I do not recommend it. So if you are going to watch it, you probably will end up watching the US ending, but do watch the UK ending instead. I think it fits the film so much better, and in general, it just wraps things up the way that makes sense versus the US ending is really silly. I don't want to ruin it, but if you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. Ended up giving this 4 out of 5 as well. That's what I gave this movie before. And yeah, it's one of those horror films that definitely holds up on repeat viewings. Now, here comes the controversial portion of this video, which I'm sure a lot of people will let me know how they feel in the comments. But I watched The Florida Project and I did not enjoy this movie. I ended up writing a bit of a rant about this movie on Letterboxd, so if you want to know how I felt as soon as I finished it, you should check that out. But the two positives that I got out of this film were, first, that Willem Dafoe is great, which I already knew, but this role is particularly good for him, and it is an unusual role for him, so worth checking out for him. And also, I did really enjoy the color palette and how the director managed to show kind of the ugly side of life, but make it look very kind of whimsical and colorful. I thought that was a very interesting choice. Other than that, this was not my cup of tea, and I almost felt like people watched a different movie from the movie I watched, because everybody was talking about how this is so true to childhood and it's about real people and all of that. And I'm not saying that somebody's childhood isn't like that, and that's pretty sad because this kid is in a pretty messed up situation. The mother is probably one of the worst human beings I have ever seen on screen. I hated her character, but generally, almost everyone in this film was just so frustrating. I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. Obviously, it spoke to a lot of people, and obviously there are stories like that out there, but that doesn't mean I have to enjoy this movie, which, as I said, I didn't. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars because that's generally what I rate movies that I don't enjoy. And I'm not going to lie, I pretty much could not wait for this movie to end. Sorry, if you loved it, I'm happy for you. It just didn't work for me. But moving on to a film I actually liked, I watched Time Crimes, which is a film a few of you have recommended to me, but I don't think it gets nearly enough attention out here on YouTube because it is a very interesting concept, and I don't want to ruin it for you. Let's just say this is a thriller with a science fiction twist to it. That's all you need to know. It is very fun to watch. This also deserves a lot of credit because time travel as a topic in movies is difficult to do. And this movie manages to do time travel right. And it just gets more and more interesting the further into the movie you get. It develops the concept, it takes things further. You think you have this figured out in the very beginning and you think, oh, well, I know what the twist is, but then you really don't. It's a really good film. I highly recommend it. Don't be afraid to read subtitles because yes, there are subtitles in this film. Ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely watch it again. Next, I watched A Quiet Place. Actually got out to the theaters to see a movie. Congratulate me because that has been a struggle lately, but I went to the movie theater, saw A Quiet Place. If you haven't seen my review, I will link it. You can check it out. But in a nutshell, I thought it was a really good movie, and I gave it 4 out of 5. Then I decided to watch Murder Party, which is the first film, I believe it's the first film, from Jeremy Saulnier, who directed Green Room and Blue Ruin. Both of these films are fantastic. If you haven't seen them, definitely give them a try. But Murder Party was just not for me at all. No. I am actually surprised by how many people enjoy this film. I kind of don't get it. It is obviously very low budget. The writing is okay. The acting is okay. The whole story revolves around this guy who thinks he's going to a Halloween party, but actually shows up to a party where they are planning to murder a person, which could be an interesting concept, but it really doesn't go that far with it at all. And yet there is review after review after review online about how this is such a wonderful satire of the New York art scene. Maybe I'm just unfamiliar with the New York art scene. I'm not from New York, or I just don't hate art students as much as everyone else does. I have no idea, but this movie was, in my opinion, not that good. Ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend it to anyone unless you just want to watch something low budget and weird. Stick to the other 2 Jeremy Saulnier movies, and let's just look forward to the upcoming one that is coming out this year, I believe. Another film that didn't do much for me is Una. I definitely expected more out of it. It is about this young woman played by Rooney Mara who goes to confront an older man whom she had a sexual relationship with when she was very young, when she was a teenager. It was obviously sexual abuse and inappropriate. So she wants to confront him. She doesn't want him to just move on with his life because she clearly hasn't moved on. And that's kind of the whole thing, which I think with a potent subject like that, you can do so many different things and you can make it really impactful. And this was just a lot of dialogue back and forth that really didn't do much for me, surprisingly. The concept of this film is more interesting to me than the film itself. That's just how it is. The lead performances by Rooney Mara and Ben Mendelsohn are really, really excellent, but they just deserved a better movie. That's all I have to say about it. It's 2.5 out of 5 stars for me. Don't think you guys need to check it out. After that, I watched Training Day, which I am sure everybody knows what Training Day is. It is pretty much a classic at this point. It's not a classic yet. It's not that old, but probably will be a classic one day. And I am probably the last person on the planet to watch this because, believe it or not, I have never seen this movie. And it is really not my kind of film. I don't usually like movies like this, but it won me over, even though I struggled a little bit getting into it in the beginning. Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington are just insanely good in this film. Denzel in particular deserved that Oscar 100%. I absolutely hated his character. I did not think I could hate his character as much as I did because I generally like him in the roles that I've seen him before. So for me to just sit there the whole movie and to say, oh my God, this guy, it was a whole new experience. And he sold that so well. And he had a lot of great scenes in this film. And so did Ethan Hawke. I generally think Ethan Hawke is pretty underrated. I'm not sure why he doesn't do more work in general. But basically, as this film goes deeper and deeper into this web of crime and complicated arrangements, so to speak, it just hooks you and you want to know where this all is going to end. And it does just take place during one day. Basically, if somehow I am not the last person to watch this movie and you haven't seen it yet, give it a try. It's really excellent. Then I watched Coherence, which is an indie thriller about 8 friends at a dinner party and a comet passing really close to Earth, which may or may not create some reality issues. That's how I'm going to put it. Once again, don't want to really ruin it for you, but it does have a sci-fi twist to it. I think the concept of this film was excellent, but I think where they went wrong with it is that they had the cast improvise a lot of the movie. There apparently wasn't really a set script and more like a chain of events that was laid out in front of the actors, and I don't think this was the best way to do this. It's still an enjoyable movie. It is worth watching once, especially if you like that kind of twisted thriller type of film, but it could have been executed so much better, and it's kind of sad that it wasn't, because maybe this is the kind of film that needs to be remade, to be honest. Someone needs to take this and actually write a good script and actually write in some tense scenes in there, because I think this could have been great, but it ended up being all right for me. Ended up giving it 3 out of 5. And the last film I watched in April was The Village. Now, I have seen The Village before. I saw it when it was in theaters, and I was not a fan of this movie, and I can say that this repeat viewing changed my mind. I wanted to see it again because a lot of people have found this new appreciation for The Village, because they say that the reason people disliked it is because you went in with the expectations of this being a horror film and with The Sixth Sense in the back of your mind as Shyamalan's other film, so you didn't get that with The Village. It's kind of a period drama / romance. And if you go in with the proper expectations, you will appreciate it more. I can't say that that's the case. At least it wasn't the case for me. It is still slow. It is still partly overacted. It still does not make sense in certain parts, and I still find the twist ridiculous. So I can't say that this viewing changed my mind at all about it. I will say that I did not remember how well shot it was. It is shot by Roger Deakins, and it looks really, really good. I also really enjoyed the soundtrack. I noticed the score this time around. It was beautiful, and Bryce Dallas Howard is really, really excellent in this film. I thought her performance really carried this whole thing and pulled it together. The cast in general is pretty good, even though some people randomly start overacting, but that's what I have to say about it. I couldn't really get it past 2.5 stars because I don't really think it's a good movie. Let me know why you love The Village so much. If you do, I know some people really, really enjoy it. But yeah, I don't think I'll be watching it again. So that's it for the film and TV portion of my April wrap-up. I will, of course, be doing the reading wrap-up next, and I have some books to talk to you about. In the meantime, do let me know in the comments what you have been watching recently. Also, let me know what you think about any of these series or films that I've talked about today. Let's discuss everything in the comments below. Try to stay away from spoilers, but if you want to talk spoilers, just put a spoiler warning before you just launch into it. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and I hope you're having an awesome day. I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!